Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome. That, as they say, is that. Marvel Comics. Let's go ahead and get started.
It is Tuesday, all you minties. That means it's time to take an advanced look at all of these collected editions coming out from Marvel Comics this week. I am the Uncanny Omar, and you are watching Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. So, let's take an early look at these books coming out this week from Marvel Comics. And welcome back, everybody. Before going any further, a big thank you to the folks at Marvel Comics for sending us advanced copies of these books. All of these books are due out in the direct market and book market on February 25th or 26th, depending on where you get your books. And what we're looking at here are a series of ongoing trade paperbacks, although that's the last one from this run. Some epic collections, a continuation of an epic collection, and the omnibus of this era also came out this month. And then, of course, the recent Marvel Masterworks and a follow-up to a very controversial series, and I'll explain why in case you've never read the original Reign. All right, so before I go any further, don't forget to smash that like button. Not sure why I hold that up, even though there's a little graphic. Anyway, smash that like button, please. That goes a long way for us here on the channel. Small thing you can do, but it does mean the world to us. Let's start this week with Venom, Volume 8, The Venom War. Venom by Al Ewing and Torunn Grønbekk. This is Volume 8 of the most recent series. And we are heading into Venom War. As a matter of fact, one of the issues, the very first issue in here, issue 35, leads us into this Venom War. So you have Al Ewing writing that issue, and then Torunn Grønbekk doing issues 36 through 39. Cafu, Germán Peralta are the artists. Frank Darmarta is the color artist, and then Clayton Cowles is the letterer. Now, this is Volume 8, so I guess it goes without saying spoilers for what I'm about to talk about in the previous volumes, and of course the setup, and perhaps some of the characters, because it's not as straightforward as something like Donny Cates' run or Agent Venomnibus. It is a really crazy and wild Al Ewing type of ride. But anyway, collecting issues 35 through 39, the book has 112 pages and retails for $15.99. So the Venom War is about to start in the aftermath of everything that's happened with Carnage. Now, in the previous volumes, we saw that Carnage had destroyed the Garden of Time, and also Eddie Brock and Dylan Brock. But as we know, Eddie's conscience went into the Garden of Time to meet up with other characters, including some stranger named Meridius. Now, Meridius, of course, has a secret of his own that was revealed in a couple of volumes ago, but I don't want to spoil that exactly. I want to talk about things that happened previously, but don't want to spoil the big twists and turns, because I feel like it adds to the dramatic effect, if you will, who that character is. So what's happening is, after this Garden of Time had been destroyed, the different Venoms from Time have come to this Garden of Time, or what remains of the Garden of Time. And I'm talking about the Eddie Brocks and the Venom symbiote from different times. I don't want to call it timelines, because these events are solid, like they're actually going to happen. So I'm talking about characters like Bedlam. I'm talking about characters like Wild. Other characters that are coming together from just different times in Venom's life. So what these Venoms decide to do is that they want to create a Venom world. So I guess that's what happens when a symbiote takes over the entire world. And of course, Eddie Brock's like, no, we can't do that. And Meridius tells Eddie Brock that, look, you failed your mission, your son is dead, you're dead, and unless these things get fixed, something, has to happen. This world is going to end. So these symbiotes, these Venoms, if you will, have now come to the understanding that this is the answer, and Eddie Brock is standing against it, and I guess in a way so is Meridius. Now, I did talk about the different times that Eddie Brock was with the symbiote. He was known as different things instead of just Venom. But what he wants to do is fix this. He wants to fix time. And if he's in the Garden of Time at the end, then he can go back and start over, do some things proper that will keep Dylan alive and keep himself in the game. So who does he go after? He goes after Peter Parker of all people, and approaches him because he knows that Peter has no interest in the symbiote. He knows that Peter at this time has rejected the symbiote. So now Dylan is waking up. Now he's with Sleeper and Flexo, these symbiotes that he's created to go and help his dad. And what's happening is that, he's waking up and he thought he got killed by Carnage. And then as he finds out through somebody else, a different voice, that he believes is his father, but it's not, because again, this is a complicated, not linear type of story, and I'm loving it. It is a secret as to who talks to him and tells him that he's still alive, that he's still part of this game. And then out of nowhere, this character appears that he thinks it's dad, right? Like his dad is back and he's going to take care of him and everything's going to be right. But no, it's Dylan Brock from the future, very Cable-like, approaching him, telling him that he is welcome to the war. Now, the events of Venom War kick off, so it'll be in this trade paperback, which I think this one comes out in April, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know what's going on in this book when I was reading this book. This becomes the adventures of Dylan and Old Man Dylan, as we're going to call him, through time, and to try to get these three big stapled events right. So Old Man Dylan talks about living in the future and fighting off against this alien invasion. Does it really matter who these aliens are? Not really, but they kind of look like the Sentinels from the Matrix. He's teamed up with his friends, Bailey Briggs, who you probably know as Spider-Boy, Norman Harold Osborn, that's little Normie, and Liz Allen. And all of them are fighting against these aliens, and they decide to send him back in time to make sure that Dylan's okay, because he's part of this big event that's happening. So the next issues are all about the character of Old Man Dylan going back in time to a certain era of Spider-Man's life. So again, not only is Eddie Brock's conscience going back in time as a symbiote, but so is Dylan, or I guess Old Man Dylan, to try to make sure that Dylan stays alive and that these three events happen in the way they're supposed to happen. And you can find out for yourself what these three events are, but you are going to be seeing some guest stars through here, such as Doctor Strange and, of course, Spider-Man. And then one big surprise that I didn't see coming. Now, this is the final volume. Let's look at the end, or the last pages here for the extras. There kicks off another ongoing series called All New Venom, and that's also written by Al Ewing. These are thumbnail covers here, and the other trade paperbacks of Venom. But this is the final one that leads into Venom War. No word yet of an omnibus or anything big collection like that, but yeah, I will say it does stand on its own. Like you have the understanding that something big is going on in here, but this is more of the adventures of this Old Man Dylan traveling back in time and making sure that his young self is going to be around for the big end game. Spider-Man Reign 2. That's right, we have a follow-up to this series right here. That's, oh my gosh, about 15 years ago is when this came out. Also written and drawn by Carrie Andrews, this time around with Brian Reber doing some of the artwork, or I'm sorry, some of the coloring. And then the spines of the books right here, and then the backs. This was recently reprinted in case you missed it. This time around, this is a 5-issue mini-series. Now, I can't even talk about this book, and I would not suggest reading the back, because I did after I read the book, and I'm glad I waited. So, spoilers before going into this, talking about what happened, not in detail, but what happened in the events of, why am I pointing? I can just show you, in the events of this book, and then, of course, spoilers for the setup of this. All right. And they do tell you, in case you haven't read Spider-Man Reign, they do tell you a little bit about what happened previously, how Spider-Man's now an old man, and Mary Jane had been dead, and he's just coming out of retirement, and he's like very geriatric at that time, and here he's a sprung chicken, if you will, but you'll see here in a little bit. But as it turns out, what was going on, why it's called Reign is very important, though. It's that you have this authoritarian ruler that is the mayor that's using his brutal police force called Reign to enforce all of these laws out there. Like, heroes are outlawed, and they've they have put a barrier around the city so nobody can really come in and no one can get out. And it turns out that he was in league with Venom, and that was in the first book. You can find out how that ends. Things blow up, and Spider-Man is kind of left out of commission. That one actually has an ending, so it really surprised me that he did this. Writer-artist Carrie Andrews, Brian Reber, and Carrie Andrews doing the colors, and then, of course, Joe Caramagna doing the letters. So it kicks off with a character that we had seen in the past, and that is this grotesque version of none other than Wilson Fisk. Wow, that is freaking awesome. I'm getting all kinds of Dune vibes from this. So Reign was kind of it was Carrie Andrews' way of doing the Dark Knight, and he was very forward about it, like doing the Dark Knight for Spider-Man. What Frank Miller did with Batman, he was doing for Spider-Man. And I said it was controversial because the reason why Mary Jane died, how she died, I think a lot of people, including myself, didn't really dig. And you can read it for yourself, because I'm a total believer that people should read books and judge them for themselves, no matter what anybody else says. Yes, even books like Trouble in Marville. I can't believe I just said that. But hey, I actually know one person that loves Trouble. All right, so she died, and Peter Parker's an old man in this dystopian future. That's what we're looking at, this possible future. So it's taken out of the timeline. So we see Wilson Fisk, this big grotesque version of Wilson Fisk tied up to this machines. Then we see Peter Parker, and he's going to a party. Now, he's still old, and I said that Mary Jane was dead. What's going on here? He sees a bunch of old friends like Betty and Flash. And of course, this is nothing but a dream, because that's gross. She's filling up his mouth with spiders, and it turns out that Peter Parker is left in this state of suspended animation. Like, his beard is all grown out, and people are cleaning up after him. He's in this room. Then we see the silhouette of this black cat, if you will. So this is how he gets out. This little kitty cat, as she calls herself, breaks him out, and together they go back out into the city that he once forgot. So it's very Blade Runner-ish, very Dark Knight Returns, and then of course, or just Dark Knight really. And then of course what I mentioned, Dune. Like, it's got a lot of those elements, and even his art style has changed a little bit. Like, this feels more like Frank Miller-ish type of artwork, which of course, like he said, he was very forward about, letting people know ahead of time that that's what he's doing. This feels more like, I'm sure most people are going to go with Todd McFarlane, but I'm going to go with somebody like Angel Medina. Because Todd McFarlane, even though his art forever changed the game, I don't think he could draw like dynamic, crazy, over-the-top character, like the way that they stand and the way that Peter Parker swings. Not like Angel Medina, and that's why I'm thinking like more Angel Medina, less McFarlane-ish when it comes to that art style here. And then, of course, his own flair. So he meets up with this goblin, and here's the thing. I'm not going to talk about the whole book. I'm just going to kind of give you the pitch. She breaks him out. They go and see this goblin, who's this grotesque version of maybe the Green Goblin, maybe Harold Osborn, maybe Norman Osborn. But the goblin is giving him a chance to go back in time and to fix things. So that's what this 5-issue miniseries is about. This collects all 5 issues, 120 pages, $17.99. And he really believes he's got one last chance to fix everything by going back into the past. Now, this is the spoiler for issue number 1, so if you don't even want to know who the Kingpin is allied with to try to get Peter Parker and Kitty Cat back, well, go to the next book. All right. Kingpin sends Miles Morales, old man Miles Morales, to go and retrieve Spider-Man and this new little black cat. Now, she's got a secret of her own. She herself has a secret. Immediately you think, oh, she's got to be the black cat's daughter. Well, not really. And even her own secret comes with a horrible past. So that's what this is about. Is old man Peter Parker going to be able to save Mary Jane? Because that's what he came here to do. He's fighting old villains, or his old rogue gallery, as an old man now with the ridiculous beard coming out of the costume. And who is this black cat, this new little black kitty cat, and how is Miles Morales going to put a stop to him and her? So what is going to happen through these pages? You can find out for yourself by reading the book. That's all I will say about it. I wanted to give you an idea of what the art looks like, and let's look at, of course, censoring that final page because I want people to see this variant right here. Of course, it's that homage to the very first issue cover right there, but this time around it's Miles Morales. Then we've got other variants. Yes, obviously very reminiscent of that Dark Knight, right? Or when Robin became the cat girl. This is Kitty Cat, though. And then other variants and other books by Carrie Anders. And the book has 120 pages, $17.99. The Amazing Spider-Man by Zeb Wells, Volume 12, Dead Wrong. So we are looking at the final volume of Zeb Wells' run on The Amazing Spider-Man. And there's your title page right there. And the credits: Emilio Lizo and Brian Valenza, John Romita Jr., Scott Hanna, and Marcio Meniz, with Joe Caramagna doing the lettering. A little bit about what happened previously. So spoilers, I mean, we're looking at the last volume, and just in case, spoilers for what happened previously. This is after the events of everything, after Dark Web, after Gang War, and after the big green goblin fight in the final, I think it was in the last trade paperback. It all comes down to this. And what's the very first thing that happens? It's actually a really unique story that I haven't seen Zeb Wells do in a while. And that is a date night for Peter Parker and Shay Markin. That nurse that he has had his eyes on from Ravencroft. Yeah, he's asking her out on a date. And this is the third time they're trying it out. And of course, Peter Parker as Spider-Man is trying to make it. He finally gets to the restaurant, and he notices that he has no shoes on. And he apologizes for being late. He notices things are going outside the city. And this is just another one of those issues that it has a lot of dialogue, a lot of narrative, and just between two characters getting to know each other like a first date. And she's really interested in him. And she kind of blindsides him a little bit and says, look, I need you to just be honest with me. I need you to tell me the truth. And he's like, I can't tell you the truth. And that's the thing, right? Like, with great power comes great responsibility, and not being able to tell anybody what you really do. But that's always been the part of the Parker luck, if you will. So collected in here is Amazing Spider-Man 55 through 60. And this book has 200 pages and retails for $29.99. So what happens? Of course, Peter Parker can't have a normal date. Well, things were going so well, too, for my guy. But nope, what happens? He notices that Screwball and Rhino are right outside of the window. And he's like, hey, I gotta go. And she's like, yeah, have fun. So he goes. He leaves. But he does something unique that I haven't seen the character Spider-Man do in a long time. And it's a different kind of confrontation. So I will let you find out how that ends. And the next story arc is all about Tombstone right here. We start off with a flashback of Tombstone being hired by the Kingpin as one of his bodyguards, taking a trip to Africa, Mozambique, and talking about how perhaps it's okay to kill one of your kids. And of course, setting up the whole thing with him and Janice, who's the Blue Beetle. Not the Blue... Oops. Slip of the tongue. That is the Distinguished Competition. Just the Beetle. Just adjectiveless Beetle. And what happened in the past, right? Like, what happened with the wedding between her and Randy? What's going on with all of that? And then, of course, you get to see a little bit of how Tombstone is handling everything, especially after Gang War, after he teamed up with Spider-Man to take out all these other gang members. And what happens there. I don't want to spoil what happens in these at the end of those stories, but I do want to talk a little bit about the book. There is some closure for some of these characters in here and how they're handled, like the way that Zeb Wells set them up, and what exactly is going on with MJ, and what's going on with that character named Paul, everybody's favorite character. And then at the very back, we get the backup stories. Get a little bit of the backup stories featuring some of the characters, including some of the villains, and the way some closure is happening, and then setting up, of course, the 8 Ways to Die. Or is it 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, I think? And even my dude, Wreck Rap, gets a little bit of a cameo in here. Or not a cameo, but Here we go. This one here. There he is. Wreck Crap is here to stay. Sorry, Joe. Now you have to use him. And that's, of course, Zeb Wells talking to Joe Kelly, who will be the new ongoing artist. Now, all the way in the back, or writer, sorry, not artist, we do have variant covers in splash page and sometimes in thumbnail pages. 200 pages, $29.99, and wrapping up this era of Spider-Man. We are not done with Spider-Man, because the next book I'm talking about is Amazing Spider-Man Epic Collection 9 Lives Has the Black Cat. This is volume 11 of the ongoing Epic Collections. And what's unique about this book is that I've already talked about most of the stories in here, because it double dips heavily with the omnibus that came out. Omnibus number 6. So I guess it's up to you whether you're an Epic collector or an Omnibus collector to get this. Now, this goes a little bit further than the Omnibus, I think by 2 issues, if I'm not mistaken. Marv Wolfman, of course, writing a majority of this. Bill Mantlo, Roger Stern, David Michelinie, Jim Starlin. Also have Keith Pollard and John Byrne on artwork taking the top billing. Jim Mooney and Mike Esposito and Frank Giacoya. And then those are your inkers. And then your lettering by John Costanza and Jim Novak. And your colorist Glenn Isween and Bob Sharon and others. So we kick it off with Amazing Spider-Man 186, and this collects 186 to 206, as well as annual number 13 and Spectacular Spider-Man number 1. The book has 488 pages and retails for $44.99. Now we do have Aunt May on her deathbed yet again. And let me see, I'm trying to think of how to talk about this, because I just feel like I'm doing deja vu. This is the fight with the Chameleon. This is the fight with Captain America before they team up. I think I've already mentioned this, that one of my favorite lines is delivered here by my buddy Dum Dum Dugan, talking about the Godzilla affair, if you will, making sure that you know that Godzilla is in the 616 universe. I love it. This is a Dave Cockrum, an amazing cover here. I love that, by Dave Cockrum and Terry Austin. But a majority of this is written by Marv Wolfman. We have the fight against Jigsaw here. And again, bad news for Aunt May. This actually has a lot of great stories between Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and JJ. I love the stories in here between both of these characters, because you really get to know, you know, Jay Jonah blames him for something that happened in the previous issue, and it unleashes the whole Spider Slayer, right? Like he's teaming up with Smythe again, and you see them handcuffed to each other, and I think this is a wonderful, wonderful issue. You've got the Human Fly in here, and Spider-Man starts wondering, wait, if the guy has the same powers I do, what's my point? And of course, the introduction of the Black Cat through all of this madness that's happening. Aunt May on her deathbed, and the whole J. Jonah Jameson affair. And then, of course, the return of a character. Now, I don't think I've talked about this, so I'm going to be talking about some spoilers in here, because I don't think I talked about it in my omnibus overview, and I feel like I need to talk about something different this time around. What makes this such a big anniversary, the deal, the 200th issue? All right. So in a previous issue, in issue 195, after the whole Black Cat storyline, who's a thief, who's a wonderful character. Again, if you want to see me talk about those stories, check out the omnibus overview. Peter Parker gets a telegram, a Western Union telegram. I don't know if people remember those or not. It's like a text message, but a lot slower. But he gets a message saying that the Restwell nursing home regrets to inform him that his Aunt May had passed away in the morning, and he loses it, right? Like, he lost everything. Aunt May was everything to him. He had already lost Uncle Ben and learned through great power comes great responsibility, and now Aunt May is dead. How could this be? And on top of that, he's getting crushed by his enemies. But somebody is behind the scenes, right? You've got Kingpin, you've got the character of Mysterio coming back, and then all of it leading into this 200th issue. I love this cover right here with all the different panels. But again, Mysterio playing a part in this, and then it is revealed in the 200th, or leading into the 200th issue, that it is none other than the burglar. It's even on the cover, was behind a lot of this. That's right. It's not a supervillain name, but the burglar, the guy that killed Uncle Ben, the guy that taught really Spider-Man with great power comes great responsibility, has come back for the 200th issue, but he's not alone. Who's he got with him? What ace does he have up his sleeve? And what does he want with Peter Parker? See, I don't want to spoil that. I want people to read it. But there is a reason why he's back. And is he real? Is he the real burglar? Or is he somebody else? Here's your annuals right here with the Dr. Octopus story. Of course, all the backups right there. And the Doc Ock story continuing. And you do have the return of the Black Cat through here. You've got the team up with the Punisher. Man, I love that. This is an awesome issue. I don't know how people feel about this era. You know, I always see, like, with Volume 5, when I did my overview of Volume 5, people are like, oh, I hated this era of Spider-Man. And I thought I saw some of the comments like that for Volume 6, too. Really, Volumes 4, 5, and 6 of Spidey to me are just as fun. I get it, they're not, you know, they're not the John Romita or even the Steve Ditko. Light Ray, is he back in this with, oh, the Dazzler story right here. And then the return of the Black Cat through the series. And by now, you have Uncle Raj and David Michelinie writing the issues because Marv Wolfman has decided to go and join the distinguished competition. And this is a story about Uncle Raj, and this is the John Byrne and Jean Day story where all of the Daily Bugle is losing it. It's not just Peter Parker like it says on the cover. Now, all the way in the back, you do have some original art. And then the Black Cat, how she was supposed to appear in the pages of Spider-Woman. The different covers here by Dave Cockrum. And then, of course, the Keith Pollard and internal artwork. Again, the book has 488 pages and retails for $44.99. And it is that time of the video where I hold up the spine so you can check out what they look like for all the books coming out this week. And also a reminder to hit that like button, please. It goes a long way for us here on the channel. All right, let's continue the overview. The New Mutants Epic Collection Volume 4, Fallen Angels. It is finally here. That's right. I think this book has been delayed for a couple of years now. So collected in here is New Mutants 45 through 54, New Mutants Annual number 3, and Fallen Angels 1 through 8. The book has 496 pages and retails for $44.99. And you have Chris Claremont, of course, writing the New Mutants stories, and then Mary Jo Duffy writing the actual Fallen Angels miniseries. Butch Guice, Brett Blevins, Kevin Nolan, and Kerry Gamble, of course, and Joe Staton, and inkers like Kyle Baker, P. Craig Russell, Glynis Oliver's the colorist with Petra Scatesi, and then lettering by Lois A. Buhalis and Tom Orzechowski. So we kick it off with issue number 45, which is, of course, the celebration of Marvel 25. 25! Oh, gosh, only 25 years young. Oh, if you only knew. We start off this book with a really powerful issue that has, yes, actually, it's right here. Collection depicts racism and suicide. Reader discretion is advised. Yeah, it's a very powerful issue about this kid that's trying to fit into a group of people, and he can't find a way to fit in. So they have this party, and the New Mutants themselves are trying to fit in, right? Like, you have Warlock trying to fit into this party. But this kid, unfortunately, just can't find a way in, right? Like, everything that he says is wrong. People call him out for being a mutant, and unfortunately something horrible happens. The speech at the end by Kitty Pryde is one of the most powerful speeches in comics. I will say that this, much like the New Mutants Omnibus Volume 2, I'm sorry, has been censored. So that has been blacked out right there. It's derogatory terms for different races. So, most of them, I'm sure you could probably try to figure it out yourselves, or get an early copy, or I'm sorry, a single issue copy, or get the New Mutants Classics. I believe it was collected in New Mutants Classics number 4, if I'm not mistaken. No, it would have been volume 7. And then we kick off the Mutant Massacre crossover right here, which shows what happens when the New Mutants are involved in this huge fight, and death is surrounding them, and it's just awful. We get the return of Magus for this crossover that will take them across time and space, and of course all of it by Magic with her new unique costume, if you will. But I love these issues. These are some of my favorite You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It absolutely gets my seal of approval for this week. There were some great comics released this week, but but this is my childhood that I loved so much. I love this era. You have Jackson Guys, P. Craig Russell inking these awesome stories, and just going through time and space. I love these dystopian future type of stories, which is probably why I have a soft spot in my heart for books like Spider-Man Reign. But it is the New Mutants trying to find a way back home and running into versions of themselves, all while trying to deal with Magus. And it all leads into the 50th issue. Again, this is the last hurrah for Chris Claremont's New Mutants, by the way. After this volume is when Louise Simonson will take over the book and become the new head writer on the New Mutants. Oh, Kevin Nolan's fill-in issue right here. It's got this cartoony feel, but I loved it. As a kid, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like anime. Sort of. Not really, if you're looking. Well, I don't know. Maybe there is a little bit of manga flair going on there. This is the annual right here. Annual number 3, which is the fight between Warlock and the Impossible Man. And the way that the character is defeated is, I'll just say, a unique way to defeat the character. Now, I went ahead and jumped the gun, right? Like, I gave it my seal of approval, but I have talked about my lack of love for Fallen Angels. This is the New Mutants right here, drawn by Rick Leonardi, starting in the Danger Room and facing the Marauders. But I will say the good of the book outweighs the bad. No, I'm not a fan of Fallen Angels. I don't know how many times I've tried to read it. You know, ironically enough, I'm not a fan of Fallen Angels, the new series that came out during the Krakoa era either. Damn, do I love me some Rick Leonardi art, though. Look at that. That is gorgeous. Plus, you have Terry Austin inking some of his stuff through here. It is just a match made. I love it. All right, Fallen Angels, what's the pitch, Omar? Why do you not like it? Well, it doesn't matter. You should read it for yourself, because I know there's several people that like it. But the pitch is, really quick, one day while playing soccer, because as we all know, Roberto de la Costa loves soccer. That's how we found him in the first issue of the New Mutants. But he's playing with his friends, and then, because he snaps, he accidentally harms Cannonball. So the New Mutants kind of turn on him, and he's like, you know what? I don't need you fools. I'm out of here. I'm leaving. And Warlock's like, so friend, Roberto, where are you going? And he's like, man, I can't deal with this anymore. I got to get out of here. So after some miscommunication, just like every story, he ends up leaving. He writes a note, and he hits the streets. And this is where he will find other characters that are very much like him, other mutants, like Chance. And eventually they'll form their own team called the Misfits. No, they're not called the Misfits. They were supposed to be called the Misfits, but they are called the Fallen Angels instead. I don't know if that was because of something to do with, like, the rights to the Misfits. I'm not really sure why they decided to go with something like the Fallen Angels. Although it works, it doesn't really matter. But in here, he's going to make friends with a couple of characters that you may or may not be familiar with that have shown up in the comics before, but look a little bit different. Like, you've got the character of the Vanisher, who's kind of leading them. You've got the character of Boom Boom, Tabitha Smith, Multiple Man. Now, the Multiple Man and Siren chemistry you're going to be seeing through here gets talked about later on in the pages of X Factor. As a matter of fact, I think it's X Factor 74. They actually handle a little bit of this, and I thought, oh man, way to go, Peter David, like going back to something like this. I thought that was really cool. And there's characters in here like Sunspot and Warlock, like I talked about, Chance. But eventually you'll have Moon Boy join them. And of course, with Moon Boy comes Devil Dinosaur. You'll have Gomi in here, and Ariel, and Dawn, and Bill, the Lobsters. So those are the type of characters that are going to be through the pages of Fallen Angels. All of them really not fitting in anywhere, so they kind of form their own team. And then, of course, by the end of it, this issue, an angel dies. Oh no, who could it be? Please don't let it be one of the characters that I liked. But anyway, Joe Staten's actually the guy that finishes out drawing this miniseries. It was 8 issues, but at first it was Kerry Gamble that drew it. But you can find out exactly what happens to these characters and what leads Roberto to eventually to come back to the New Mutants. And speaking of New Mutants, here we go. We are back to the New Mutants. So I love the way that this is mapped. You have all 8 issues in between the issue 50, I think it's 52 and 53, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 52 and 53, which I think when I was reading, I remember writing a note down a few years ago when this came out in the classics format, or no, Fallen Angels, the Marvel premiere came out. I remember writing a note that I had many years ago. Read this after issue number 51. So I wonder why I did that, because Roberto was in issue 52. But anyway, there's another Hellfire party going on. And again, Rick Leonardi with beautiful inks by none other than Terry Austin. And then we have the graduation costumes. Why are they wearing those? Again, back to the party. This time around, Sal Buscema supplying the pencils and Terry Austin supplying the inks. Man, do I love this era. And yeah, it is the last hurrah for Chris Claremont's New Mutants. He ends up leaving the book after this. That's what it was going to be called, the Misfits. The pitch for the Misfits. Fallen Angel right here. Supposed to be a 6-issue miniseries. There they are. Again, with the other titles. The X-Men are about to fight the Avengers. Siren Spotlight on Siren Spot, Sunspot, and Warlock. I remember the early drawings. Yes, this is the ad I would see. One moment of anger and their lives are changed forever. For a little bit. This is the Marvel Premiere hardcover that came out. But yes, like I said, the good definitely outweighs the bad, and it's got some awesome artwork in here. Again, the stuff has been collected in omnibus format, but I know you Epicureans love you some epics, and don't miss out on this one. Last but certainly not least is the Invincible Iron Man, Marvel Masterworks, Volume 18. So now we are looking at a continuation rather, of the Dennis O'Neil and Luke McDonnell series. And again, the build of the book, very much like the rest of the Marvel Masterworks. Invincible Iron Man, Volume 18, and then what it collects, and of course the top billing to Dennis O'Neil, Luke McDonnell, Bill Mantlo, and George Freeman. And again, you have the credits over here, the inks of Steve Mitchell, Ian Aiken, and then lettering of Rick Parker and Joe Rosen, colorist Bob Sharon and George Russos. Your table of contents telling you where you're going to find each of these issues. The big classic fight here. And then your introduction by Luke McDonnell, talking about how he was worried about losing the job because one of the inkers had gotten fired, and just how fun it was to draw this era of Iron Man, and how great of a writer that Dennis O'Neil was, and how both of them kind of came up with a lot of these stories. And talking a little bit about how cool it is that this collection has the Jack of Hearts miniseries, which is something that Bill Mantlo wrote in his run. And it kind of ties it in together with the Iron Man Marvel Masterworks. So it's really cool that they added it here. So collected in here is issues 183 to 192 of the Invincible Iron Man, annual number 7, Marvel Team Up 134, and then Jack of Hearts 1 through 4. This book has 416 pages and retails for $75. So it is very important to note that during this time of Iron Man, Rhodey is still in the costume. This is during the era of the Secret Wars that was going on, the big crossover. And it's not just Rhodey, though. You know, like, Rhodey decided to come back from Obadiah Stane and start working with Iron Man, or I'm sorry, Tony Stark. Tony Stark has taken a step back because of everything that was going on in Demon in a Bottle and losing his company. And then when Obadiah Stane took over the company, he was working with him along with the Irwins. So you had the character of Morley Irwin and his sister. God, what is her name? It's like Clytemnestra Irwin. Let's just say Cly. Both of them are scientists that were working for Tony Stark, and then they went over to Obadiah Stane when he took over the company, along with James Rhodes, and then came back when Tony Stark was sobering up. But it's this time that Rhodey is underneath the armor, fighting against the Zodiac. So he's fighting against Taurus at the beginning, and later on he'll be fighting against other of the Zodiac characters. So this is when he lets Tony know. Tony, by the way, growing a full beard. That's right. He lets Tony know that he's been getting headaches ever since he's been wearing the costume. That ever since he was wearing the armor, that these headaches are getting worse and worse. And they start to actually mess with him a little bit, like in the way that he's making irrational decisions. And it does come to a big head here in a little bit, but not before we get the introduction of this new villain named Vibro. And believe me, Luke McDonnell actually jokes a little bit about that and how they got away with a character like that. Of course, he holds all these people accountable for making him look the way that he does. And then, of course, Iron Man gets in the way. You have the annual right here that shows us the Avengers, the West Coast Avengers, and how Rhodey, how he actually works with them as a team. And this big fight against Giant Man, or the Goliath character, if you will. And again, Rhodey just having a hard time wearing this costume because of this headaches that he's getting. Like, it's just killing him. This right here are the Brothers Grimm. That's what these guys are called. And then it is a fill-in issue, but then Luke McDonald comes back. But eventually, these headaches do get the better of him, and he starts to snap and making just bad decisions. So much so that something happens that leads Iron Man to take on his friend. But when he takes on his friend, he uses the original Iron Man outfit, or one that he makes. And it's this big fight between Iron Man versus Iron Man, and who will win. And then what happens to the winner, right? Does Rhodey get to still wear the Iron Man costume? Or does that mean that Tony Stark is back as Iron Man? Or does he even want that? But that's what the main part of this story is. And of course, leading up to the events of issue 200. Now, we do get this wonderful inclusion of, I've never read these. I've never read the Jack of Hearts miniseries. And now I understand where... now, I did read this. This is part of the Marvel team-up right here. This is, of course, the fight with Spider-Man. But now I understand a lot of these little things that they were going back to in Jack of Hearts for the character. So we do see the return of this young lady. What is it? Mary? Is it Mary? No. Marcy Kane. So Marcy Kane was a character that Bill Mantlo created in the pages of Spectacular Spider-Man. And she comes back sort of like a love interest, or helping S.H.I.E.L.D. out. This is a really rough story, man. This is a story where Jack of Hearts is trying to commit suicide because he cannot live like this. He can't touch anybody. No one can touch him because of his powers. So he's flying through this electrical storm, and it fails to kill him. And that's when S.H.I.E.L.D. gets involved. And so does the character of, like I mentioned, Marcy Kane. So Marcy goes to him and tries to talk to him about, his powers. And then there's a big revelation about his mother and his father, because there's these alien ships that are trying to kidnap him, and you're wondering, what the hell does this have to do with Jack of Hearts? But it all ties in together. It's a very Bill Mantlo-ish type of story that I just love. I'm in it for the ride. He loves using, he has these tropes about these aliens coming down and attacking normal people, and then maybe the normal people have ties to the aliens, but that's what this is. Man, do I love this stuff. This was really good. This came close to getting my seal of approval because I have never read it, and George Freeman's artwork is awesome. So long story short, there's an alien civilization that their sun is burnt out, so they need another power source to power up, right? Because it's like a snow planet now, and they need to live, so why not get somebody like Jack of Hearts, who's got this power, who's got this energy living in him, and he can't really control, to help them out, right, against his will. But that's what this miniseries is about, twists and turns and revelations about his own heritage, and really powerful stuff for the time. Mantlo just knocked it out of the park. And then you have some Marvel Age stuff back here. So I'm glad that this was included, because I'm not sure where else it would have been collected. Lots of Marvel Age articles back here, and then the Invincible Iron Man cover. So you have original pages, and then the biographies on these creators here. And other Marvel Masterworks. And much like all the other Marvel Masterworks, just in case, sewn binding, and you've got these thick, glossy pages. So it's the same paper stock they've been using for years now, and this is from the Donnelly printer. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you plan on picking up, which ones you're hoping will come out in an omnibus edition, even though some of these already have. Yeah, some of these have already. But yeah, let me know if you're holding out for an omnibus or an oversized hardcover. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Smash that like button on the way out. Check us out on Patreon and Spreadshop. Amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.